At 75, I never gave up. Her powerful story. My name is Ruth. I am 75 years old, and I want to tell you something that I have never said in these exact words before. I never gave up, not once. Not when everything fell apart, not when the people I loved left, not when my body betrayed me, not when the world told me, quietly, persistently, in 100 small ways, that it was time to stop, to sit down, to accept that my best days were behind me. I never gave up, and today I want to tell you why and how. Because it was not easy. It was never easy, and anyone who tells you that perseverance is simple has never truly been tested. I have been tested many times in many ways, and I am still here, still standing, still showing up, still believing, with every part of me, that the next chapter is worth writing. My name is Ruth, and this is my story. I grew up in a house where giving up was not an option, not because my parents were harsh. They were not. They were warm and steady and deeply kind. But they had both come through hard times, real hard times, the kind that leave marks. And they had a quiet, unspoken understanding that life required something from you, that you had to meet it, that lying down when things got difficult was simply not what our family did. My mother used to say, "Ruth, you can cry. You should cry. Crying is not weakness, but when you are done crying, you get up." And that instruction, simple and clear and completely non-negotiable, became the compass of my life. When you are done crying, you get up. I got married at 28. His name was Samuel. He was a warm and complicated man, generous and difficult and deeply loving all at once. We had a marriage that was real in every sense of the word, not a fairy tale, not a performance, real, with joy and struggle and long, hard winters and beautiful, unexpected springs. We had 2 children together, a son named James and a daughter named Anna. And for many years, through the ordinary business of raising children and building a life, things were hard in the manageable way that most lives are hard, not dramatic, just real. And then when I was 41, James was 12, Anna was 9, Samuel lost his job. The business he had worked for collapsed overnight, and the man who had always been the steady provider, the man who had built his entire identity around being the one who held everything up, crumbled, not immediately, slowly, the way a wall crumbles when the foundation underneath it shifts. He became depressed, deeply, genuinely depressed in a way that I did not fully understand then, because we did not talk about such things the way we do now. He withdrew. He stopped looking for work. He stopped engaging with the children. He stopped being present in a life that was still going on around him, whether he was present or not. And I made a decision. I went back to work. I had been at home with the children for years, and I went back. I found a job in an office, administrative work, nothing glamorous, and I worked. I came home and made dinner and helped with homework and held the household together. And I also held Samuel, quietly, consistently, without fanfare, through the worst of what he was going through. People ask me sometimes how I did it, how I kept going during those years when I was carrying so much. And the honest answer is, I did not always know how. There were nights I sat in the kitchen after everyone was asleep and I was so tired I could not form a thought. Just bone deep exhausted in a way that sleep alone could not fix. But I thought about my mother's words, when you are done crying, you get up. So I sat. And sometimes I cried, and then I got up. Samuel recovered. It took 2 years, 2 long, grinding years, but he found his way back. He found new work. He found himself again. And we came through that period closer than we had been before, because we had seen each other at our worst and stayed. And staying, choosing each other when staying was genuinely difficult. That built something between us that the easy years never could have. Then when I was 52, the children were grown and gone, and Samuel and I were just beginning to breathe again. I got sick. Breast cancer. The word landed in the doctor's office like a stone dropped into still water, and the ripples went outward in every direction and changed everything. I remember sitting in my car after that appointment, just sitting, not crying, not panicking, just very still, and thinking, all right, Ruth, here it is. The thing you always feared might come. It is here. Now what? And the answer came from somewhere deep and quiet and completely certain. Now you fight. That is what you do. You fight. I had surgery. I had chemotherapy. I had months of treatment that stripped me down to something I barely recognized. I lost my hair. I lost weight I could not afford to lose. I lost the particular energy that I had always taken for granted. That basic assumption that your body will do what you ask it to do. I lost that. And I grieved it. I allowed myself to grieve it because grieving is not giving up. Grieving is honest. But I never, not for a single day, stopped believing I was going to come through it. I made a decision in that car park outside the doctor's office. I decided that cancer was something happening to my body. It was not something happening to me, to Ruth, to the woman who had come through hard things before and always gotten up. My body was in a fight, but I was not defeated. There is a difference. There is a crucial difference. I came through. It took a year, and I came through, and I stood on the other side of it, changed in ways I am still discovering. Because illness, real serious illness, it strips away everything that is not essential. It clarifies. It removes the noise and the pretending and the going through the motions. And what is left, what survives the stripping, is what is real. What I found real in me was this. I loved my life. I genuinely loved my life. Even the hard parts, even the scary parts, even the ordinary Tuesday parts that I had been walking through without fully noticing. I loved it, and I was not done with it, not even close. So I came back to it with a kind of deliberateness that I had not had before, a kind of intention. I stopped doing things out of habit and started doing them out of choice. Every morning I chose to get up. I chose to be present. I chose to tend to the people and the things and the small daily practices that made my life feel like mine. Then at 64, 11 years after the cancer, 11 years of living with intention and gratitude and the particular aliveness that comes after you have nearly lost something, Samuel died, a heart attack, sudden and fast and completely without warning. He was there in the morning and he was gone by afternoon. And the world, my world, went silent in a way that I had no preparation for. Nothing prepares you for that silence. The absence of a person who has been beside you for 36 years is not just an emotional experience. It is physical. It is in the air of the house. It is in the weight of the bed. It is in the way you reach for someone in the dark and find only space. I fell apart. I am not ashamed to say that. I fell completely apart. For months, I was not Ruth. I was just grief wearing Ruth's clothes. I could not eat properly. I could not sleep properly. I could not find a reason to do the things I had always done. The intention and the deliberateness that I had built after the cancer, it all dissolved. I was back on the floor, back in the kitchen at midnight, too tired to form a thought. But here is the thing about getting up. Once you have done it enough times, once it has become the pattern of your life, it does not require the same decision each time. It becomes something closer to instinct. I did not decide to get up after Samuel died. My body just eventually did it, because that is what Ruth does. That is what I do. When you are done crying, you get up. My daughter Anna came and stayed with me for 3 months, just being there, sleeping in the next room, making tea, not trying to fix anything, just present. And her presence was the bridge, the thing that carried me from the falling apart to the beginning of the putting back together. She would gently, so gently, suggest small things, a walk, a call to an old friend, a drive somewhere we had always liked, small things. And I did them. Not because I wanted to, but because she asked and she was there and she loved me, and sometimes that is enough reason. And slowly, the way it always happens, slowly and not in a straight line, I came back. Not the same Ruth, a different one, quieter in some ways, more careful with time, less willing to spend a single day on things that do not genuinely matter, more aware than ever that the people in front of me, right now, today, are the gift. Then at 68, I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. I went back to school, not for a degree, not for a career, just to learn. I had always wanted to study literature, always. Since I was a young woman reading books by lamplight and feeling that particular ache of a story that reaches inside you and rearranges something. I had never studied it formally because life had taken other directions. But at 68, a widow, a cancer survivor, a woman who had been through enough to know that later is not a promise, I enrolled in a literature course at my local college. I was the oldest person in every class by decades. The young students looked at me with expressions I had to learn not to read as pity. Some of them eventually became people I genuinely valued. One young woman, 22 years old, serious and brilliant, used to walk to the car park with me after evening classes, and we would talk about what we had read, and she told me once, "You see things in these books that we are too young to see yet." And I thought, yes, that is what 68 years gives you. Not just wrinkles, perspective, the ability to read a story about loss and know it from the inside. I studied for 3 years. I read more books in those 3 years than in the previous decade. I wrote essays. I sat in seminars. I argued about ideas with people young enough to be my grandchildren, and I loved every single moment of it. Because learning, real learning, the kind you choose freely for no reason except that it feeds something in you, is one of the greatest joys available to a human being at any age. Then at 71, I started writing myself. Just a journal at first, then longer pieces, then stories. I had things to say, a lifetime of things to say, and I had finally found the form to say them in. I am not a famous writer. I have not published a best-selling book, but I have filled notebooks. I have written things that my children read and cried over. I have written things that I read back to myself and thought, yes, that is true, that is real, that is mine. And the writing became the most honest conversation I had ever had. With myself, with the years, with everyone I had loved and lost and carried. It became the place where nothing had to be performed or managed or held together, just told. At 73, my health challenged me again, different this time. My knees became so bad I could barely walk. The independence I had always taken for granted, the ability to simply go where I wanted when I wanted, was suddenly limited, and I will not pretend that was easy. It was not. There were days of real frustration, real grief for the body I used to have, real fear about what was coming, but I had been here before. Different shape, same territory, the territory of loss, of limitation, of being asked to adjust your life to accommodate something you did not choose and do not want. I knew how to be in that territory, not comfortably, but competently. I had surgery. I did the rehabilitation. I pushed myself harder than the physiotherapist expected. Not out of stubbornness, well, perhaps a little out of stubbornness, but out of genuine determination. I was not ready to be still. I had things to do, people to see, words to write, a life to keep living, and I came back. Slower than before, more careful than before, but back. I am 75 years old now. And when I look back at the whole of it, at the job loss and the cancer and the grief and the illness and all the ordinary hard things threaded through in between, I see a pattern, not a pattern of luck, not a pattern of things going right, a pattern of getting up every single time, without exception. That is the only story. Not that bad things did not happen. They did. Not that I was never afraid. I was. Not that I always knew what to do. I did not. Just that every time I went down, I got up. And I want to tell you something about that, about what it has built in me. It has built a kind of trust, a deep, quiet trust in my own ability to survive hard things. When something frightening comes now, and things do still come, life does not stop testing you simply because you have had enough. I do not feel the panic I used to feel. I feel something steadier, a knowing, a quiet recognition that says, you have been here before, not here exactly, but in the territory of hard things, and you always found your way through. You will find your way through this too. That trust, built one getting up at a time over 75 years, is the most valuable thing I own, more valuable than anything else in my life because it goes with me everywhere. It does not depend on circumstances. It does not depend on other people. It does not depend on things going well. It is mine, built by my own hands, one hard day at a time. So I want to say something to you. Whatever you are facing right now, whatever has knocked you down or is threatening to, whatever you are carrying that feels too heavy, whatever you have tried and failed at and are afraid to try again, you are more capable than you know. The human spirit, your spirit, is more resilient than you have been told. You have come through hard things before. Maybe not this hard, maybe not exactly like this, but you have been in the territory of difficult things and you have found your way. That is not nothing. That is everything. Get up, not because it is easy, not because you feel ready, not because you know exactly what comes next. Get up because you are still here. Because still being here means something, because the story is not finished, because there are people who need to see you get up, not to perform strength for them, but to show them that getting up is possible, that survival is possible, that life on the other side of hard things is not just possible, but genuinely beautiful. My name is Ruth. I am 75 years old. I have been knocked down more times than I can count, and I have gotten up every single time. Not because I am special, not because I am stronger than you, but because I learned from my mother, from my life, from every hard morning that eventually became a bearable afternoon, that getting up is always possible, always, no matter what. When you are done crying, you get up. That is all. That is the whole secret. That is everything. Thank you for being here with me today.